Looks as though we are live in the group, and I'm also recording, so we'll have the full recording of this as well. Welcome to anybody who is watching. We get a bit of a delay, so I can't actually see. When we're using Zoom, we get a bit of a delay. So welcome to anybody that's watching, and hi to anybody that's watching on replay. Okay, so I've got Christina here, who some of you will know, some of you won't know. Christina coaches with me. She was my very first coaching client and has been through the whole coaching program, and now uses all the stuff we do in her own clinic and coaches with me. And some of you have been lucky enough to experience coaching with me and Christina. So welcome, Christina. I've got Christina here because she uses this stuff day in, day out. So what we're going to be talking about today is not why on earth should we massage or why on earth would be massage. That was a, yes, John, it was a little bit of a provocative title, deliberately, but there's a hell of a lot I want to try to get through today. And this is a high level live stream. We're going to go through some points with some discussion around those points, but then hopefully we can go into them in more detail in another live stream. Right, there we go. So I want to rename this really from why on earth would we massage or why on earth should we massage to why do we massage and when should we massage. The context here is for professionals who are involved in solving musculoskeletal problems. But as we'll see, this encompasses everybody that does hands-on massage work. Okay, but I'm defining a musculoskeletal problem as anything from solving just general muscle tightness. And those of you who've been on the coaching program know I hate using that word, but it's easier to use it now and here, through to solving pain and delivering injury rehab. Okay, so anything using our hands on tissues to solve a musculoskeletal problem. I like a story. I like backing these lives up with a story. And some of you will know that I sustained a sporting back injury about 32 years ago. I didn't find any resolution at the time. I saw 8-10 different professionals. They all told me there's different things and all did different things and nobody got it right. But as part of that time, and I wasn't in the industry then, so I really didn't know what I know now, I used to go for regular massages, okay, sports massages and other types of massage. And after a while, I started getting headaches and was feeling a bit rough after them. And I had no idea why. I now know why. And throughout this live, I'll sort of come back to that story to highlight some of the things and illustrate some of the things we're talking about with my own story, because it's great to have a story. So I was struggling, and it ended up with understanding that it was the massage I was receiving that was actually causing the problem in my case. All right, and we'll go into that as we progress. I said at the beginning, it's all about using these things. When I said I was going to do this live stream, there were a number of people asking questions around the use around the use of massage guns, around the use of tools, around the use of other things, and we'll address that. We'll look at that at a high level, and we can go into those in a little bit more detail. But at the end of the day, we're talking about using these things. We need to be using our hands. Our hands are our gold standard. Nothing else comes close. Do you want to come in there, Christina?
Yeah, I think I'll pick up on that point from when we did that mentoring session with Joe back in 2019.
Yep.
It was such a super mind-blowing session. And something just really sat for me and really sunk in. And it was we'd been discussing a little bit about the pressure and the touch that we were using and how light it needed to be. I'm fairly au fait with that sort of thing anyway, and it's something I'd actually kind of understood as I'd gone through practice myself of, yeah, okay, I knew how to use firm pressure, how to get depth of pressure, but actually as I was learning more, I was actually backing off without even realizing it. And when we did that session with Joe, it kind of really backed that up, that we need to use a really light touch. So it's just placing the hand on get that top level, what's happening there?
Mm-hmm.
And actually, there was also a presentation at the conference we went to as well, which also struck with me too. How we go through the levels and layers. There's multiple layers. You've got multiple layers of skin, then you've got layers of fascia, layers of muscle. And gradually in my practice over the years, I'd been sort of developing this knowledge and realizing that I could actually distinguish between the different layers of muscle. And we need to start with a real feather-like touch to just understand what's underneath us.
Absolutely.
And then very gently, it's only a minimal increase to actually even go down to the next level.
That's the crucial point here. We whatever we're doing, really, we can get our best bang for the buck by working lightly. Okay, so doing deep tissue massage, there are very few situations where really deep tissue massage is needed. Okay, and I'll sort of touch on that a little bit as we go through. But one of the most important points here is that we lose so much information if we don't use our hands, and we lose so much information the harder we go with our hands. Okay. So this whole business about whether we should be using tools, massage guns, other types of schools, scrapers, etc., which we will talk about a bit. You've effectively lost the interface here between the hand and the body completely. You can't listen really effectively at all through tools. So I say we need to use our hands, the whole hand, and nothing but our hand. Is what I put in my notes here. Christina's smiling because she's seen my notes. My notes are up there, so keep on looking up. We need to be using our hands, firstly. We need to be using our whole hand, because if we don't actually use our whole hand, again, we lose information. And nothing but our hand. So if we start using tools, we start losing information. So that's the really important thing about using our hands, and why I say this is about people who use their hands to solve musculoskeletal problems. Our gold standard tool is these. Okay, and if that's something that we work on a lot in our coaching program, which brings us on to the first part of using our hands, really, which is listening. We teach all of our clients, coaching clients, to listen before they do. We cannot listen with anything other than our hands. And as I said, the harder we use our hands, the less we can listen and the less information we get. We need to be understanding, I'm just going to scroll my notes up. We need to be understanding what's going on inside tissues before we dive in with any soft tissue work. Each soft tissue technique we've been taught delivers a specific result, but we need to be understanding which technique is going to resolve the problem that we're listening to under our hands, to know which technique to use, which one's going to do the best thing, do the best job. So we need to be listening before doing. That tells us what is going on inside tissues, which will then tell us what technique we should be using. Okay, we'll talk about that in a bit. We then need to recheck before going on and doing something else. And this again is something which we really work hard on with our clients. We need to be rechecking following any soft tissue technique. So we do one technique to deliver one outcome on one tissue or set of tissues, and we want to know whether we've had a positive impact on that tissue. Unless we've established what's going on beforehand with listening, okay, we have no way of knowing what change we've delivered. So we listen first using our hands. That tells us what technique to be using. We then do the technique, and then we recheck, we re-listen. You want to come in here at all, Christina?
Yeah, little comment that something I often used to say was, I view these as my eyes, but actually eyes and ears as well. Mm-hmm. And just so much information can be gathered through the hand. Yeah,
absolutely. It's so powerful. Okay. But I repeat, as soon as we put our hands away and start using other things, and I include in that, I'm going to watch Christina's face, but I include in that using our forearms and our, heaven forbid, our elbows and other parts of our arm. We don't have the tactile interface that we have in our hands. As soon as we get beyond this point, the tactile interface disappears in terms of listening, really listening. That wasn't in my notes, Christina, so I'm looking at your face, but
I sort of half. I don't know. I'm sort of half saying yeah and no. You definitely it decreases, or the amount of sensation decreases. I totally agree with. I just kind of wonder if over my umpteen years of practice and experience now, I've kind of developed feeling all through here and into here.
You may have done. Okay, but the sort of thing we're picking up with these things. And if anybody, Joe, the work our mentor Joe's been doing has shown this to be the case. This bit here is our gold standard interface for picking things up. Okay, we need to be here, okay, to pick that up. We need to then do the technique that this tells us needs to happen, okay, based on what's going on inside tissues, okay, and then we need to recheck to see what impact, what change we've imparted on the tissue. And that brings us to a huge topic, which is change. Okay, I've got several subheadings here under change. And I'm going to revert back to the old language, which we get rid of on the coaching program. I'm going to use it here because it's easier. So, tightness, weakness, stiffness, overactive, underactive, trigger points, stringy muscles, anything we feel when we're palpating is change in tissue. And it's change in 4 dimensions. It's change in physiology, change in biomechanics, change in biochemistry, and change in neurology. Okay, and we can pick up all that by using these things, the whole of our hand. So why we listen with our hands, and we have to before we dive in and massage, is we want to know what change has taken place inside a tissue. What change has taken place inside a tissue? What physiological change, what biomechanical change, what biochemical change, and what neurological change has happened in that particular tissue for this client right now? What change in a tissue do we then want to effect with massage? Because we want to try to reverse, assuming this muscle or this tissue is misbehaving, we want to try to reverse the physiological, biomechanical, biochemical, and neurological change that has happened in that tissue. We need to then know what technique will deliver that change. And then we need to recheck, going back to the rechecking, we then need to know what change we have actually effected in the tissue. So there's 4 dimensions to this. We need to know what, so just to repeat that, we need to know what change has occurred in the tissue across those 4 dimensions. What effect we then want to reverse, what technique will deliver that reversal, and what change we've actually delivered once we have reversed it. And this is why I was experiencing headaches and other symptoms following regular massage, because this bit wasn't done. No listening was done to my tissues, especially down my back. Okay, and we'll illustrate that in a little bit later. This is why I was experiencing my problems, because these 4 stages were not done. It was just palpation. Oh, that's tight. That's blah. Let's go in. And my tissues didn't want that. So should we massage? Okay, here we get to the crux of it. This is a huge question. If we don't know what's going on inside tissues, probably not. And if we don't know why those changes are there, probably not. So why do I say that? Why, if we don't know why things are there, probably not? And this is a huge topic for me specifically, and I know for my mentor. Are tissues tight? We'll just use the tight word, because they are supporting something that's weak. How do we know that releasing a tissue is actually going to be beneficial? And that was what was happening with me when I was going for my massage. Okay, they were releasing tissues which really should not have been released. Okay, and I'm just going to share my screen briefly. I have shared this on another live stream. It's my favorite diagram of some muscles down the back. So hopefully we have pictures of the main erector spinae muscles, iliacostalis, longissimus, and spinalis. You will notice that they extend from right up here, all the way down the cervical spine, right up into the underneath in the occiput, right down the cervical spine, all the way down what we call the thoracic ring system, which is the rib cage and the thorax, all the way through the lumbar spine, and all the way down to the base of the sacrum. And that was what was going on when I was having my massage on my back, because I used to go in for a neck, shoulders and lower back massage. Really, really common, okay, to go in for a neck, shoulder and lower back massage. And they were finding all sorts of issues with these muscles, releasing off what they felt were tight. And actually, I had a fairly major issue with my pelvis because of my back, of my issue. My injury was to do with my pelvis. Okay, but actually releasing off those muscles had a knock-on effect by giving me horrendous neck pain and headaches. And that is why, because whoever was doing the massage, and I didn't know this stuff at the time, they didn't know any of this, all right? But actually what they were doing was releasing off muscles which were supporting weak structures, and I had a weak structure on my right-hand side of my pelvis, which was then causing my issues. So
I'm just going to pause there because I've got a comment in from Nikki. Saying that she had her first sports massage after being told by the physio I had piriformis syndrome. I just hurt for the next 3 years and had my own pack of peas for icing and freezer. And she had to make the decision to move away from it. Absolutely, Nikki. Yeah, absolutely the right decision.
Piriformis syndrome, the word syndromes there is because they put the word syndrome after something where there's no real quantifiable pathology going on, really, an issue they can't put their fingers on specifically. And I don't mean that from a palpatory point of view. I'm talking about it from a conceptual point of view. Yeah, piriformis syndrome can be caused by these sets of muscles. It can be caused by a non-moving nervous system. It can be caused by a non-moving pelvis. It can be caused by a non-moving thoracic system. It can actually be caused by a non-moving shoulder or anything else in the body. So piriformis syndrome actually is one of those where the last thing we want to do is to go in deep massaging, heaven forbid, our elbows, okay, with going into piriformis, because piriformis is going to be angry, unhappy, and maybe, okay, let's call it tight for now, but we don't know why. So going in there and releasing piriformis because it's tight, in a lot of cases is not going to be the right thing. And this diagram illustrates really the reason. I know this doesn't show particularly piriformis, but it does show the reason why. If you palpate down somebody's spine and find that there are parts of iliocostalis or longissimus or spinalis that are toned up and you need to release, you feel you need to release them, okay, ask yourself, what am I releasing? Should I be releasing? What am I going to have happen if I release this muscle and it's supporting a problematic pelvis, supporting a problematic thorax, supporting a problematic shoulder or cervical spine? So yes, absolutely, Nikki. Your question was very, very pertinent there. I'm going to close off the share. So understanding all this might seem complicated, but actually it all starts by understanding the changes that are going on in muscles. We start off all of our coaching by helping people understand the changes that are going on in tissues using these. And those changes are going to be physiological changes, biomechanical changes, biochemical changes, and neurological changes. And we can pick it up all with these. You can't pick this stuff up with anything other than this bit. All this bit and only this bit. Now, Christina may have developed the skills to pick it up in her forearm, but that's what she's been through the coaching and she knows what she's listening to. Okay. And fantastic if you've done that, Christina. But
true. I always start with the hands.
We always start with the hands. Okay.
Yeah. I suppose it's slightly tongue-in-cheek, really, whether I really actually developed the skill to feel it all the way through the arms and elbows. But I think actually is much with that. It's actually understanding the energy of it as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So when I come to this, I question deep tissue massage because we don't know. Okay. And I was taught when I did my training, problematic piriformis, go in deep, because piriformis is a deep muscle and we need to go in deep. No, absolutely not. Let's take a step back. And I think if nothing else, we coach our clients to take a step back and ask what's going on and why. And we start with the tissues. Okay. So that's the why we should not potentially go in and massage. It's huge. If we massage those erector spinae muscles and then send the client out of the door, we don't know what the state of the stability is of their key moving structures, their pelvis, their spine, their thorax, their shoulder, and higher.
Lovely, Simon. We've got a comment from John here.
Yep.
Sometimes skeletal pathology cannot be affected by manual therapy. Hip joint issues, for example, or disc degeneration. The knock-on effect into protective structures can lead to pain, which is caused by the body's response. I would argue, or John would argue, that you occasionally have little choice other than to offer relief, no, that cannot solve the root of the problem.
Okay. Do you want to say anything there, Christina?
I
was going to focus in on the hip joint thing. Okay. Okay. Just you want to repeat what John said about the hip joint there.
So hip joint issues, sometimes skeletal pathology cannot be affected by manual therapy. Hip joint issues, for example. Okay.
I would say pretty well every single hip joint issue I've ever come across is directly related to what we're talking about. Okay. Yeah. Absolutely. We can talk about that, John. That's not a problem on the coaching calls. But I would say in my experience that every single hip joint pathology is directly, the 27 muscles cross the hip joint. Okay. If we've got a non-moving pelvis on one side, for example, okay, which has misaligned the hip joint, okay, it's the soft tissues that are potentially doing that. So we need to be very mindful of what the tissues are doing, where they're pulling, where they're working, you know, what angle, what vector, whatever you want to call it. And this is where we get into real biomechanics, but don't want to go there too much. But basically, how muscles are working, in what direction, you know, etc. And that's going to pull the hip joint out of alignment completely, causing cams and pincers and all sorts of other issues and labrum tears and all that sort of stuff. All right, but it's generally caused by tissues that are doing a job they shouldn't be doing. So we need to step back and say what is causing those tissues to be doing that. All right, we can talk about that on the coaching. That's not a problem, mate.
Yeah. So yeah, John was referring specifically to labral tears and sort of cam lesions. Yep.
Yeah. So absolutely, they're most often caused by problems with tissues. Okay, it's a chicken and the egg situation. I get it. Okay, but non-moving pelvis is quite often caused by tissues not doing their job properly. Wrong pathology, wrong biomechanics, wrong biochemistry, wrong neurology, which then knocks the pelvis out. But then it's a cycle. Okay, as to what's causing what on the chicken and the egg. But in the equation will always be those tissues. All right. So this set of changes, this physiological set, biomechanical set, biochemistry set, and neurological set, I use the term tissue mechanics signature. This is all tissue mechanics. Okay, that tissue mechanics signature is what's going on physiologically, what's going on biomechanically, what's going on biochemically, and what's going on neurologically. All things we pick up with our hands, and that I call the signature. We need to know that signature to then just go back to those 4 questions. And I said, what change in the tissue has taken place? What change has taken place in the tissues is the tissue mechanics signature. That will tell us what intervention is required to reverse that signature. And then we can recheck it using our listening skills to see what effect we have had. Has that signature improved? Has there been a positive change? Has there been a negative change, or has there been no change? Basically, we get the 3 things: positive, negative, or no change. So we're talking about this signature of these 4 things. Okay, physiology, biomechanics, biochemistry, and neurology. Okay, and then I have to ask at this point, moving on to tools. How do tools, massage guns, scrapers, many other tools that are out there, okay, deliver specific changes to specific tissues? Because the signature, the tissue mechanics signature, will be specific to a tissue or a small group of tissues. Very few tools can actually work and be specific enough and sensitive enough to be working in a very specific way, okay, on one tissue or only one tissue, or a part of a tissue. How can we feel whether the changes we want to make are occurring when we don't have our hands in direct contact with the tissues and can listen? Come back to the using of these. These are our gold standard. So the question I pose out there, I'm happy to have a challenge on this, okay, but are such tools, guns, scrapers, whatever other things, the dolphin and IAM tools and all that, all other things people use, sufficiently specific and sensitive enough for the tissue we need to change and the change we need to make? And I would argue probably not. You nodding there, Christina.
Yeah.
Okay. So when we use a massage gun and we just go down our leg or whatever we're using a massage gun is, we're just pummeling that muscle in no particular specific way, and using no particular specific technique on no specific tissue. We're just pummeling it. We don't know what effect we're having on those tissues. We don't know. So I'll be more specific there. We don't know what effect we're having on the signature, the tissue mechanics signature that's happening in those tissues. No, it's no such thing as just tight. No such thing as just weak. And we also go into that in a lot of detail on the coaching program. I want to finish. Sorry, Christina. Yeah, sorry, there's a bit of a delay there. Off you go. Apologies.
A load of noise just coming on the road there.
Can't hear it
on the subject of sort of tools and massage guns and all those. In fact, I was actually taught to use them at various points in my training. I actually haven't used one.
No, I was as well. Not massage guns, because I don't think when I did my training they were really there. But we did have a session on using tools. Yeah, we had a few sessions at various points. I've done a few trainings on these sorts of things. But the fact that I actually haven't used them or incorporated into my practice, I think says rather a lot. Mm-hmm. It's almost at this point, I don't want to go down to this because it's a little bit of a rabbit hole, Christina. But just to be fair, you do use a particular tool, which is in replacement of hands, okay, which is K-taping. Oh yes. Yeah. Okay, so I know that. So, but that's very specific, because what you're doing is leaving the client basically replacing the hands by using K-tape, and that essentially was the model for the K-taping. The way that the person who designed K-taping, kinesiology. So do you just want to just very briefly expand on how you use K-taping there? For me, I use the original, which is kinesiotape. Dr. 𝗂𝗧, who is a chiropractor from Japan, if I remembered this correctly, was the guy who invented it. And yeah, just as Simon's saying, he purposely wanted to be able to leave his hands on his clients sort of after the treatment, so they didn't get a regression. Yeah. And this is what he came up with to do it. And it's incredibly versatile, because you can use the stretch properties of the tape from literally 0 to 100% to affect various different things, whether it's to work with the muscles, whether it's to work with the joints or the ligaments, or whichever structure. So yeah, it is a bit of a rabbit hole, but it's probably the one I use, but it's not a mechanical tool. I think this is where the difference is, because it's you're not sort of using it like a massage gun. It's you're using it for a specific purpose. Because you felt something, you've done something with your hands, and you want to leave the client with that in place. Yeah. To support them when they go out of the room. So yeah, no, absolutely. So that is a tool which really lovely. Simon, we've got a couple of comments as well. Nikki's friend me yesterday, it's taking her over half an hour to get moving in the mornings. She's so stiff that her partner has brought her a massage gun. I thought, no, you're just going to feel worse, because what you're doing is giving the muscles a bashing. Oh dear. Oh. Lovely. John says tools don't allow you to have a meaningful input. They are labor-saving devices for therapists or marketing opportunities and commodities resales. Yes. Love it. Yes. Yes. Trouble is, there's still deep perception that deep is good. I agree. Yes, it's something that's really difficult to really sort of combat this in the industry. Often if they don't feel beaten up, they don't feel like they've been worked, and we'll echo that experience. Which can that's a really interesting one, is the client perception. They a lot of clients say, well, you haven't done anything. I only think anything's been done when I leave and I'm in pain, or I feel as though I've been pummeled or whatever. Oh my God, no. I've had a few comments to the same effect as well. Yes, and I've even said to
patients when they've been in the treatment room with me, no, I've got to back off. If going back to what we were talking about the touch earlier, if I go in too deep and your body starts to react back, I am not going to achieve what I want to achieve with you.
Absolutely bang on.
That's why I will back off. And
don't forget what we said right at the very beginning was our intention here is to help solve musculoskeletal problems for the client. Okay.
And let the body tell us what's going on.
Absolutely.
Hello there, Beth. Good to see you.
Who's that? Come on.
Beth.
Oh, right. Hi, Beth. Right. Okay. I don't know how long we've been going. I just wanted to, I was going to look at the time.
35 minutes.
35 minutes. I just wanted to finish this, what was going to be a high level discussion, and we can go more deeper in future lives, with just dropping another little bombshell here, which I know will generate questions, but probably have those questions offline or after the live. Whenever we place our hands on a tissue and move those hands at all, so we put our hand on a tissue and we move our hand, we are creating change to that tissue. So when we do general massage, which typically involves moving our hands in different directions in different ways on different tissues, by definition, we are generating multiple changes to tissue. Okay, so putting our hand and moving it that way will have a completely different impact from a change from moving it that way or that way or that way. But if we then just do general massage, look what my hands are doing, we're generating a signal change to the tissue going that way, so a different one going that way, a different one going that way, and a different one going that way. So if we just do those 4 cardinal points of a massage, which I know we don't, we've straight away just delivered 4 completely different messages to that tissue. 4 completely different changes to that tissue. Wow. Okay. So we've now delivered multiple messages to the tissue, different changes to the tissue. Not surprising, they get confused. This is why clients keep returning over and over again with the same tissue issue. And this is why I was experiencing, and one of the reasons I was experiencing the issues following my massages. Because not only were they releasing muscles, you saw the erector spinae, they were releasing muscles that really shouldn't have been released, but they were actually delivering multiple different messages, signals to the tissue. So as I say, if we want to deliver a change to a tissue going that way, and we talk about all this on the coaching program, tissue change going that way will deliver a completely different tissue signal to going that way or that way or that way. Oh my God. When I learned that, whoa, my brain just exploded. I think Christina, it happened, same with Christina, really.
Yeah. Oh, yes.
Right. So I'm probably going to close it off there. We covered a lot of ground in this live, and we can do follow-up lives. I don't mind that. We can't do coaching on these lives, but we can discuss the principles and whatever around some topics I've mentioned and we've discussed. But if you've got specific questions that have risen from what I've said, especially some of the bombshells I've dropped, which is fine, okay? Believe me, when I learned this stuff, my brain just exploded, and then I delivered this stuff to Christina, really the first client to experience this all in the round. Her brain exploded. Yes,
I had some quite quizzical looks going back at you.
You did. Okay, and I got messages all the time coming from Christina saying, oh my God, what? Okay, so it happens to everybody, so don't worry, okay? But what we've talked about here is delivering change using our hands and the power that our hands can deliver. But that power, with great power comes great responsibility, is the phrase, I think, was it Spider-Man? We have to know what change we're delivering with our hands. We have to be able to read what is happening through the interface between the skin and our hands. We need to be able to read the tissue mechanic signature. So we put our hands on a particular muscle and listen and tell it to do certain things, and we can tell what's happened to it physiologically, biomechanically, biochemically, and neurologically. When we have that signature, we then know what technique we need to do to that muscle to help reverse it at a very localized level. The tissue next to it might need a completely different technique. the tissue below it might need a completely different technique. Okay, so just because a tissue tells us one thing as a signature doesn't mean that applies to loads of other. It often does, but sometimes it doesn't, and we have to understand the limitations of our listening to what is happening. Okay, so do you want to close off here at all, Christina? Anything you want to say from what I've just said? And we can close this off and let people digest this and go back through this live in their own time, and then bombard us with questions, because I'm absolutely certain there's going to be loads of questions from this.
I think so, and I think, yeah, ask the questions if you've got, even if it's just a little thing, just pop it in the comments, and pick it and take you further with it. And
if you've decided that you want to learn some of this stuff, then let us know, because we've got programs to help you. Okay, so this isn't a selling time. This isn't a selling time, but that this is basically what we do. What I've talked about here is what we do in the coaching program. There's nothing I've talked about here which we don't cover in the coaching program. Okay, there are different levels of the coaching program, yes, and not everything is covered in every level. But what I've talked about here is absolutely, including the hip stuff, is covered in our practitioner level coaching program. Okay, not the 8 steps, but the practitioner, where we do some practical work together to understand what's going on with the pelvis and a whole load of other things. Okay, so I'll leave it there. Just check to see whether any other questions that anybody's asked. Christina, just very briefly.
No more comments through. Just Nikki at the bottom here was saying, over the years, I can believe is good and being trained in Swedish, so I'm still very inadequate as a therapist. Oh, Nikki, love you. We'll have a good discussion on this, my dear.
Yep, everybody goes through this this phase that there's the curve that I can't remember whose curve it is. The curve of finding something out new. Oh my God, the despair, and oh my God, I'm useless, and then you come up back on the other side.
Yeah.
And I use it all the time. Kovler-Ross. The Kovler-Ross curve. When you learn something new, somebody tells you something which blows out of order what you currently do, and you learn something new. There's the excitement, and then you turn the table and it goes into utter despair, and you think, I can't do anything, I'm useless, blah, 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 blah. And then basically you come back up the other side.
Been through it many times.
Absolutely. We've all been through it, and it's normal. So don't worry. That's why I don't do training courses. I don't deliver this stuff on training courses, because it is so different, so mind-blowing. Needs time to coalesce in the brain, to sit there, and you need practice, and then you need access to us for practice. And that's why we do the coaching and mentoring and support with client cases. That's the reason why we do this. Okay, that's why we don't run training courses, because you cannot deliver this stuff in a training course. It don't work. I tried it, it doesn't work. Okay, so I'll say thanks for listening, thanks for watching.
Yes, thank you, everybody.
And thank you, Christina, for your time today. It's been invaluable.
Thank you. Thank you for everyone who's watched and put a comment in.
Absolutely. Thank you for those. Yes, absolutely. Those who engaged. Thank you very much. And I will now close off the live, and I'll see you guys on the other side with any questions, which you can post underneath the live stream. Bye for now.